My grandfather was born in 1888, and my grandmother was born in 1894. And in the South during the time of the 50s, uh, the best paying job when I started working was 15 cents an hour.
I grew up in North Carolina. I attended segregated schools. Segregated schools in North Carolina, you did not get free books. We had to rent our books. And at the end of the year, if the book was damaged, we had to pay a fine just like you do in the library.
We weren't allowed to vote. We weren't allowed to register to vote. We weren't allowed to just do anything naturally.
In my town in North Carolina, blacks were not allowed to vote. And when a movement came that blacks was decided that they really wanted to vote, they could not just walk down and fill out a piece of paper. They would take blacks in the back room and they would have to read a passage from some history book. Most blacks did not have a high school education or an elementary education, so most of them was turned down. That's the way they turned down blacks.
Yeah, a lot of people lost their lives that we might have the right to vote. And people today have the advantage to vote where our parents before us wasn't awarded that privilege. Some had to die in order to give us that right. And if it hadn't have been for men like Martin Luther King and President Kennedy backing us up by sending in the National Guards to protect the people, a lot more would have lost their lives.
You know, it's so horrible. But if you never lived through that,
It's true.
you don't know how that feels. You don't know how it feels to be called an end to your face and you can't do anything about it. You don't know how it feels to have the door slammed in your face. You don't know how it feels to have to go to a restaurant and you have to go to the window and order food to the window. You don't know how it feels when you can go in the restaurant now and sit down. See, we don't understand how all that feels. And then the people say, well, I had a gentleman to say, boy, you black people really know how to praise God because we were brought up in that era
Definitely.
where that's the only thing
The
that we had to
only
lean
thing.
on.
Right. Okay.
And we had praying grandparents and praying parents that got us through that. That they were our stepping stones.
Right.
So that's why today I'm so happy. Being 71 years old, I'm so happy just to see how we have progressed through these years. Didn't know I was that old, did you?
Well, if Rosa Parks hadn't have gave up her seat, we'd have still been on the back of the bus. But I thank God for strong women and strong men that came before us who were willing to sacrifice that others might have the privilege and the right to a better life. How would you like to always have to go back and sit on the back of the bus, even though the front seat was empty?
It was about 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. The bus pulls up. There was only about 4 white people on the bus. The driver told us, go to the back. My father had to put all of us on the bus. My mother was carrying the baby. And there was a little white line on the floor. And we had to go past that line. No black person could sit in front of that line. And it was hot on that bus. And that's the way we rode. And other times on the bus, if you was a black person in the South and you was on the bus and you was beyond that white line, and if a white person came in, you had to get
stand
up.
You wouldn't be able to sit in that front seat. But because of her act of obedience, not only to her own conscience, but to God, because God says he has no respect of person. Therefore, we all should have the right and the same rights. I thank
And
God
it's,
for
it's,
Rosa
it's, it's
Parks.
wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yes, it is.
It's wonderful to become to this part in life.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
It
yes.
really is.
And my advice to the young kids are that they continue to look up to the ones that are above them as people of God and examples of how they should conduct their lives. And stay true to your mother and your father's teachings, because the Bible tells us that we should train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart. That is a very important message, because when I was a child, my mother and father sent me to church with my grandparents. And I thank God for that early education, because now, as an elder in the church and as a leader in Glory Tabernacle, I pray that I set a good example of what my mother and father has instilled in me from my youth up.